Good morning, Rick from DreamSideOut. Well, here's another day of the van build. An interesting spot in the van build. This happens to me in any kind of creative endeavor I've ever done in my life. And that's a spot where you get to a point where you have to just stop and figure out what to do exactly. You have to work through problems. This happens, it's just part of the creative process. And the best thing to do in those situations that I've found is just to stop and be still, kind of sit and think things over for a while and work through the problem that way. This brings up a good point too about van dwelling. And I suppose this comment would be to the newbies, the people that have not done this. You're considering getting a vehicle like a van or a box truck or something to live in. You want to build it out, make it into a little home. Here's my recommendation, and I'll tell you, I think this is just important. When you get a vehicle, don't do anything to it. Just stop and be still. Throw a sleeping bag in there, a few things that you need. Go somewhere and hang out in your van. Just sit there and take a notebook, a sketch pad. Let your ideas start to flow while you're in the van itself. Because the thing that happens with creativity is that there's an energy in it, and that energy just wants to be released. And one mistake I've made many times in my life is that I fly into something too fast. And when that happens, I make mistakes and I waste material. Because there's just a really good feeling about that creative process. You want to get right into it. You want to go put the roof vent in. You want to buy some lumber and build it out. You want to just start flying into it. But a lot of times we allow that energy. I have many times allowed that energy to take control, and it's kind of right. I'm kind of riding on the wave of it. And you just end up wasting time, spending money, and wasting materials because you haven't engaged your mind enough in the process. You're kind of letting the heart take control. And I know we hear that term a lot, follow your heart. Well, that's just not necessarily true in my humble opinion. I think you've got to watch out following your heart. Your heart is good. It brings the joy and the energy to doing something, but it's like an unruly little child that needs to be controlled and needs to be managed, and you have to teach it. And the mind can be deceitful too. My mental. I can have a dream, for instance, or a vision about how something should be built, and it seems so perfect and right in the vision. And then I go to build it and go, why in the world did I think that would work? That's completely ridiculous. And my mind and my heart both can deceive me. So I recommend that when you start this process, just go slow, be still, go slow. And if you sit out somewhere in your vehicle that you just bought, go to your favorite place like the beach or up in the mountains or wherever you like to go, and just sit there. It'll speak to you. That environment will start telling you what to do in a strange way. You'll start to see what you can do. And then if you think it through carefully, you'll find the most plausible and the most effective and economic way of doing it if you allow yourself to do that. So one of the things I've been working on for a few days is my table design. Tables are very important to me. It's an important piece of furniture in my physical environment, so I like to give some attention to the table because it's a place that I'm going to eat off of, it's a place I'm going to socialize around, and it's a place that I'm going to do my creative work on. So that a table is a very important thing. So what I've been doing over the past few days, actually, I've had to stop and rethink this because I have a different configuration from my last van. As I explained before, I have these boxes, and I think they're a little further along now than they were when I showed you. I finished them out a little more. I'm going to get another coat of stain on those, and then there's going to be benches on top. The benches are going to open up like lids to put all my stuff in. But I have to figure out a table design that's going to work in conjunction with that. And that's a little bit different problem to solve than I had in the last van. I liked the fold-down table that I had. And I was really struggling for the past few days to try to streamline that design and make it even better than it was before. But, I went full circle and I came almost back to square one because... And I don't know, you just have to go through that process. So one of the things I do when I'm trying to solve a problem, see, this is the mechanism that's going to be used for the table. It's fairly simple. It's the same one I had last time. I have to do a little bit different configuration down here to make that brace fall into the corner where it's supposed to be, but that's not a problem. I already know how to solve that one. That's not a problem. I went through all kinds of iterations of this actually over the past few days. And what I recommend is if you're trying to figure something like this out, some, unusual thing like some mechanism like this or something you want to do in your van, I highly recommend going out and just, pay $12 and get some cheap lumber like this. This is just some cheap old pine 1x board, the cheapest I could find, and sit down and kind of slowly work through it, figure things out, saw out the pieces, and just use this as a mock-up. This is not the actual pieces here. This is just a mock-up of what it's going to be, and these pieces will become patterns for the final design. It's well worth the money. You're going to waste some material, true, but you can save your little scraps, and they do come in handy in other places. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes things that you'll build that you can use scrap lumber for. So it's not a total waste. But before you go out and buy expensive material, like these oak pieces I bought, this is $70 worth of lumber right here, just these 3 pieces of lumber, and that's gonna build the mechanism for the table. And, that's what I came up with. But before you go out and buy that stuff, it's a good idea to spend some time doing this. And, put things together, configure it a few ways. Don't settle for something, because as you do this process, the process itself will speak to you about a better way to do it. You'll see things that you weren't able to see before. And believe me, I think I have... I'm pretty good at spatial reasoning. I'm pretty good at visualization. I work with people that are very smart and are way better than me at this visualization, and they have to go through this process to get there. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes time and effort. Bringing a design or creation into physical reality it takes some thought, it takes some energy, it takes some trial and error. If I was the ultimate creator, I could just say, let there be a table, and it would pop into existence, but I can't do that. I have to bring things into existence in a different way. And I'm telling you, every time I have something in my imagination or something I want to build, and I go and start to deal with physical material, it's always different than what I thought. Always. I mean, I've thought that I could come close, but you always will see something you didn't see before because of the physicality of the stuff you're working with. One of the difficult aspects of creating something like a van, an illustration, a painting, whatever it is you're trying to build, a house, is accepting the fact that there's always going to be a better way to do it, regardless of how many ideas you come up with. You can design something forever, nonstop. You can just keep on designing for eternity and come up with a better and better and better and better and better and better way of doing it. Believe me, I know this. I work in a big manufacturing company, and the best, most brilliant designers, if you just turned them loose, they'd go forever. They'd never stop designing. And that's something that's, a difficult thing to accept, that there's got to be a point at which you decide, this is where I'm going to commit to this design, and then you turn away from that creative process and you commit to it and follow through. That's the point you want to get to in your thinking. So here's some considerations, some categories of things to think about when you design something. At least this is what I go through. One is the functionality of the thing. Well, that's a big deal. How functional do you want it? And this was important to me in this van build because I decided that I didn't want doors and drawers and all that kind of stuff, because functionally, those were not necessary, and they were cool functional things, but they don't apply to the van lifestyle as much as they do in the fixed dwelling lifestyle, in my humble opinion anyway. So I decided that was not a functional thing that I wanted. I just wanted boxes with lids that I can put things in, and I want the boxes to look decent in my environment. And that brings me to number 2, which is aesthetics. Aesthetics is another thing that I'm not going to edit that out, okay? It's another thing that is very important to me, and I think it's important to everybody. We all have our different threshold of what we're willing to accept aesthetically. We all have different opinions about it. It's kind of a subjective thing. But I like to have my environment as free of clutter as possible. I like it to look pleasing. I like the materials to be sensuous to the touch. I think that brings me into the third thing, which is ergonomics. How ergonomic, in other words, how well does my environment interact with me as a human? That's why I want the desk that folds down. I want to fold it up and feel the big space in here sometimes and use it for other things than just a table. But I want that table to be available, and I want it to work in a way that doesn't cause me a lot of trouble, because I'm basically lazy, so I want it to work easy. And I guess the other point about designing something is cost, efficiency, and cost and materials and that kind of thing. I don't want to waste a lot of materials. We don't want to waste lumber. We don't want to waste stuff. You want to use them efficiently. And so thinking through the design and figuring out what it really takes to do it is very important, and that's why I took the time to make patterns first and do that kind of thing. Another point to make about cost and efficiency, this van build, as you look around, and I've mentioned this in my previous video, my intention has been to build this whole thing out of standard dimensional material. In other words, I go to Home Depot and I buy boards that are already planed and sanded to the dimension that they're going to be. So that means I don't have to rip any linear material on a table saw. All I have to do is make horizontal cuts with my little Japanese handsaw. The trade-off there is that you pay more money for boards like that, and you're constrained to the dimensions that they sell at the store. You know, if I had a full-fledged cabinet shop with all of the primo tools, you know, digital CNC routers and table saws and jointers and planers and all that stuff. But if you're a van dweller, you know, you're living in the van, can't carry a cabinet shop around with you. You need a method of building that will work in that kind of situation. So I figured that if I constrain myself to dimensional lumber, I can work on requiring less power tools and acquiring. And when I think of acquiring more, I'm not really acquiring more. I'm requiring less power tools by adapting my body to skills. Just like you can require less by learning to adapt or by learning skills. So I'm a big advocate of, you know, if you don't have skills to do carpentry and to do this kind of stuff, there's a couple of solutions to that. One is pay somebody to do it for you. Two, acquire the skills yourself. And I believe most people can acquire basic skills to do what I'm doing right here. It's just cross-cutting lumber, learning how to do it better and better. And any big sheet material can be sawn at the place that you bought it from if you plan ahead. Okay, it's been several hours since the last sequence when I was rambling on about my philosophical views on how to build stuff. And let me tell you, I was pontificating about how to think through things and make sure you got it figured out before you do something. Well, let me tell you, I was just about ready. I had my saw in my hand and I was ready to cut expensive lumber. And a voice in my head said, "You sure you want to do that? You're wasting some material because you know there's another way to do that." Oh God, what is that voice? You know, and it just and I had to stop. And I'm telling you, when that voice comes up, you gotta stop. Okay, like I said, I was about ready to cut expensive lumber, right? And that voice said, you know, there's the voice of that accuser in your head that wants to make you feel guilty about everything you do. You know what I'm talking about? There's this accuser, and but then the higher voice comes along and says, you know, he's right. And then I don't know if the accuser goes off and says, "Oh crap," or what the heck is going on there. You can ponder the philosophical and theological aspects of that. I don't know. But the point is, I had to concede and think that, okay, what am I doing here? I'm hanging on to something. I'm hanging on to a solution that I had in the past, and I'm not letting go of it. You know, the table design I had in my previous van worked really well, and I was really proud of it. See, there's the problem right there. I wanted to hang on to it because I thought that was the solution for everything, but it's not. It's not the solution for this van because, you see, I have this box down here that wasn't there in my other van. So putting the legs through the box doesn't make sense because it just breaks up the space in there, and I want that space open. I don't want to put any legs through the box. So I started thinking, you know, the easiest thing to do is just to have, you know, a little flip down thing like this, fold it down, and use the box as the, you know, as the leg itself. And it was a solution I thought of a few days ago, but I wrote it off because I didn't want to do it. It wasn't the elegant design, right? It didn't fit my previous way of doing things. And that's one of the big problems in designing something for me. Letting go of stuff. Letting go of something that worked once. Maybe it doesn't work anymore. Now you got to let it go. It was good while it lasted. And you got to let go of it and move on to the next thing because it's a different scenario now. So I decided to do that. And let me tell you, I thought I was going to be further ahead today, but all I really did was spend another day of working through the solution. And now, though, I am very confident that this is the way I'm going to go. It just seems like the right thing to do. You got to check in. Does the heart, the mind, and the body agree? And I think they're coming to an agreement. And that's where you kind of want to get before you start cutting material. Okay, have a good one.